walked out of the thicket. It turned around and looked at me.
They looked up, and in this tree, there was a monkey man. And the monkey man jumped down out of the tree and started running away.
And suddenly they're right in front of the car. He slams on the brakes and manages to stop. And he's skidding because it's like quite, gravelly. And literally for about a second and a half, they just stood there because they don't know where to go. And you tell them panicking. They're like rib flapping, and their face is like twitching.
Welcome back to Bigfoot Society, a podcast where we focus on cryptids, the strange, and the unexplained of this world. If you've got a story or something weird to share, send an email over to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this show, head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now, on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Mr. BitSquatch today. How are we doing, sir?
Great. Mister, I like that.
Well, I think it sounds even cooler, you put a Mister in front of it. But this is going to be, I've been excited for this interview for a long time. Just because, I saw your account on Instagram, BitSquatch. And I'm calling this individual BitSquatch because, for certain reasons, we're not wanting the actual name of the individual known, which is perfectly fine, and I respect that. It kind of gives a little mystery to it, which is good too. But I saw your Instagram account, which of course is BitSquatch, and just the photos or the artwork that you're seeing on there. And if people are on YouTube, you can see BitSquatch has one of his profile picture. He has one of his artworks up, and it's, man, when I first saw it, it blew me away. I was like, how is this even possible? And where is this going? And I need to talk to this guy about it, no matter who he is. I need to have this discussion because I think it's going to become very important for us to realize what we're up against and where we could be going. So, BitSquatch, take a few minutes and fill in the cracks with what the listeners need to know about yourself before we get into it.
Okay, well, I grew up and currently reside in the Gulf Coast. My real job is like a digital media professional. But as a child of the early 70s, I was exposed to things that most people talk about in search of. Thank God I never saw Legend of Boggy Creek. I think that would have freaked me out big time. But two things happened in the early 70s. I was maybe 5 years old. One was, and they were both relatively close by, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, these two fishermen went on the news and claimed to have been abducted by a UFO. And it was like, this became an international story. And these guys said they went on the ship. They were, the usual things happened to them. And after this incident, they went to the police. They were totally freaked out. And then they went to the media. And then just recently I Googled the story, and one of the guys is still alive and recently came back out and said, this really happened. I stand by my story. Well, anyway, this was a huge flap. And it was just, as a kid, it was just sort of like amazing. And then right around the same time, the Honey Island Swamp Monster story kind of broke. The Honey Island Swamp is east of New Orleans. It's right in the Pearl River Basin. And it's a swamp that's kind of adjacent to suburban part of New Orleans, more or less, what it is today. And this guy, Harlan Ford, claims he saw this creature. And at the time, in the early 70s, he had a footprint cast. And him and another guy, he was a hunter. And these guys, they live out in the kind of like in the movies. They live out in a shack in the woods in the swamps.
Right.
And this story became another huge international story. And so, just as a child, I was like, "Wow, all this stuff's going on, and then I think his granddaughter Dana Holyfield is still kind of nurturing the Honey Island Swamp
Yes.
story today. But and then I didn't really think about Bigfoot or whatever until about 20 years ago. And I'm sure you know this story. I was watching one of these cable shows. It was like 2002.
Okay.
And I saw Jimmy Chilcutt on, and he was talking about the dermal ridges in the footprint casts. And this guy, his expertise is in primate footprints. He's a fingerprint guy for the feds. He does, he works for the sheriff department or something. And he's a very credible guy. And he was looking at these casts, and he noticed that the ridges go one way, and only primatologist geeks know this, and they were accurate. If it was a primate, the way these dermal ridges looked would have been accurate for some sort of primate monkey. So anyway, that really intrigued me. Like, wait a second, like this is cool. And so that kind of started my modern day sort of obsession, or just interest in Bigfoot. I'm just sort of an enthusiast more than anything else. I don't really go out and do research or anything like that. I just try to keep up with the subject.
So I think that's important info to know, that this isn't just an account where it's some random dude who's like, hey, Bigfoot's hot right now. Let me combine two things and see what I can do. Like, this is a individual where you've grown up interested in the different cryptid UFO things, and also it's kind of been a part of your life all along, which is very, very interesting. I think it puts a spin on it. But we're here to talk about specifically your account, BitSquatch, it's making AI, or artificial intelligence created Bigfoot artwork. Is that the easiest way to explain what's going on here?
There's this new set of tools where they're called like text to image tools, or image generator tools, where you describe what you want to see, almost like it's like texting a robot, and then the robot comes back and makes a very compelling image. And apparently, and it's using artificial intelligence. And there's a number of these products, programs. There's Dolly is one of them. One of them is called Midjourney. Another one's called Stable Diffusion. But what it's actually done is, it apparently, and I don't claim to be an expert on how these things work, but I just use the tools. But they've like sucked in or processed all the images on the internet, and they have the intelligence has some capability of understanding what the images are about and what makes up those images. So then when you describe what you want, it uses the artificial intelligence to create an image based on all images on the internet, which is kind of insane. And then
this is Terminator stuff, dude. It's Terminator stuff, man.
Yeah. And that's what's so interesting and addictive about the text to AI tools, is you get something back very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like usually in under a minute you get an image back, and you can so the better you are at describing something, and you kind of just iterative process where you keep refining your description, and that's called prompts. So there's a whole thing called prompt crafting, where you massage the text and the order of the words, and exactly what you say, it dictates what the thing is going to show. And interestingly, although I'm not doing too much of it, it understands art, it understands photography. You could say Picasso painting of a Volkswagen Bug, and you'll get something back that looks pretty damn good. And you can just kind of go from there. You can mix up all kinds of different, you can kind of smash together different visual concepts. What I'm trying to do is just sort of visualize some of these classic Bigfoot type stories, and some of the legends, and the kind of the greatest hits, so to speak, if you've been following this subject. And then I'm kind of riffing on just pop culture. Bigfoot is this great symbol. People project onto it what they want, and so it can it's a stand-in for like, the human condition or whatever. And so some of the images are just sort of open-ended statements of what is he doing. You're supposed to. It's not supposed to be real. He's in a shopping mall parking lot. He's
right.
A homeless
Yeah.
person,
which I like half of your stuff is that, which is really cool. It's like Bigfoot in a, a subway station, or you also take, like you were saying, there's a series you did where it's like, the rock apes, the story of the rock apes, and you have
Yes.
soldiers in there too, which is really cool. I think you had dedicated that to Lauren Coleman, right?
Yeah, kind of when I was getting back into it in the early days of the internet, Lauren and Craig Woolheater were doing that Crypto Mundo website, which was a blog.
Yes.
And at the time, those posts aren't up anymore, but Lauren was posting really in-depth content almost every day. It was just amazing. And it was sort of a schooling on the whole field of cryptozoology, because Lauren, of course, is an expert. And then quite a bit of it is about Bigfoot sightings. And that's where I first read about the rock apes. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Vietnam vets claim to have interacted with apes or monkeys that threw rocks at them in the jungle. That's basically what, and I had never heard of that. Of course, there's no pictures of that. There's no nothing. So once I started putting some of these images together, I said, well, let me try to do some renderings of what, a rock ape kind of situation would look like. So I have a few of those in there.
AI art is very interesting. There's some really, really people they have opinions about it on either side for sure. And we're not going to really get into that, but it's wild because there's even an economy that's starting to come out of this, where you can find websites where you can pay someone for the prompts that they are using to create certain art, which is mind-blowing. So if there's someone out there that is like super into this, you could literally figure out how to make different types of artwork and sell your prompts. That's a totally other Gary V conversation as well. But so I don't want to, I've tried to make Bigfoot in DALL-E in the past, and my Bigfoot did not look like your Bigfoot, BitSquatch.
Right.
Like yours
is. You have to put some time in. I know, and it's funny. When I first started doing this, and I was rendering. This is one of the first you had messaged me.
Yeah,
I was going to send some messages to the various names in Bigfoot, who do podcasts and stuff, to say, hey, be on the lookout, because it'd be pretty easy to fake an image. And then all my images are obviously contrived. I put a watermark on it, so no one. It's clearly not supposed to be real. But if you wanted trail cam images, for instance, are very easy to create.
Oh my goodness,
blurry. I've never posted one, but the few I did was like, wow, that could definitely pass as the real thing. So this is coming, where we're going to have to sort out the difference between, real images and sort of fake images. But these tools have only really kind of exploded in the last maybe 32 months, 30 days. They've really just sort of taken off. So it's brand new, and it's even since I've been using it in the last month or so, they've gotten better. They've evolved. So where they're going in another 6 months or a year is going to be truly, I believe videos coming and all that. So
so I want to pause for a second and make sure the listeners got what was just said. These tools have been around for 30 days to 2 months, and we're already at the point where BitSquatch is able to make photos where some of them could easily be mistaken for what is real. BitSquatch, how this, obviously it's exponentially getting better. Are you seeing that it's a thing where sometimes people talk about technology and it's like, every certain amount of time, it's going to increase and increase and increase? Do you see it's just getting crazier and crazier, or what do you see? I guess any patterns?
I mean, they're refining it. They're refining the algorithm and the technology to actually do the render. And you mentioned like DALL-E and some of these things. The images were fairly crude, and you could kind of tell, well, that kind of looks like whatever it is I'm trying to show you. But there's a certain clunkiness to it. And just recently, it's getting more photorealistic, basically. And you can put in prompts for lenses, for exposure, for film effects, for film grain. Like one of the renderings I did was, there's the infamous case of the Sasquatch on videotape raiding the dumpster behind the casino.
Oh, sure.
I think it was in New Mexico or Arizona or somewhere. And of course, people have seen this video, but it's never been publicly released. So I tried to render that, and I actually described videotape and things like that, and it actually put distortion, videotape kind of noise in the rendering.
Wow.
Because basically, if you specified it, basically it'll do it.
And you can put stuff like I tried not to get into a super rabbit hole on this, but it kind of happens. I let myself hyper focus for a few days on it, and then I was like, gotta pull back and get back into other stuff. But it's like you can get really crazy. You can do like high definition, as you were saying, the lens types. I mean, literally, you are only limited by the knowledge that you might have about how to create images. It's
right.
It's
if you're
crazy.
a photographer, or what in the industry called an art director, and you've art directed photo shoots, or you've art directed an illustrator, where you're telling a real human sort of what you want, and you work with them to get what you want. Those skills help in this department, in that you're kind of used to going, okay, let me, close up, extreme close up, blah blah blah. You can describe the weather conditions. You can basically describe anything. And what I think what's so fascinating about this, and I'm in the technology business, you hear a lot about AI, and you can't really get your head around AI. And AI is already doing all these things that we can't really touch or see. But in these tools, you actually see it come together. And that's when and it's kind of breathtaking, and also a little scary of what AI can do. Like you don't know if AI is being used in other ways for like advertising and things. You just can't see it. But in this case, you really do see it. As a user of these tools, it's truly breathtaking. I mean, sometimes I'll do a prompt and then I'll get a result. I'm just like, I can't believe what it just did. I mean, it's like, holy.
Are there times where, for the good of the community, you don't release stuff? I think you may have already answered this, actually.
Yeah, no, just the trail cam stuff.
Oh yeah. It's wild, man.
But it's coming. I think I saw Facebook's working on something where you put a prompt in and you get like a 5-second video. I think they're already demoing it now. Like Adobe Photoshop's building something. So there's going to be a lot of these tools, and I think you'll probably be able to describe videos at some point, possibly, hey, Patterson Gimlin film, frame 167, whatever, spell it out what you want.
Totally.
And you'll probably get something that looks pretty good.
Another example of how this has really escalated quickly. I think I asked you to be on the program maybe just a few weeks ago. It feels like it was not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And since that time, not in our community, but I don't know if you noticed this in the UFO community, what happened last week with AI photography, AI graphics.
I don't know.
Pretty much what happened, someone started making, like the old photographs of the Roswell crash footage with UFOs. Mm-hmm. It is so good, BitSquatch. I can't tell if it's actually not historical photographs that were taken. Like, there's no blurriness. It looks 110%. Like, I looked at that and I was like, one, we're in trouble, because it's going to get to the point where people figure out, like, how can we, believe someone anymore, where it's like, I got this photograph of a cryptid. Look at this new cryptid, or like, look at this photo I magically uncovered from the estate of fill-in old school Bigfoot researcher. And look, he had this photo all along, like, what can we do, man?
Well, I've read that I don't think this is live yet, so to speak, but they were thinking about putting watermarks or, something akin to a QR code into the image, where you could then reverse engineer potentially where the image came from. I don't believe that's in there now, but yeah, I've never tried, but yeah, UFO images would be very easy to fake, because it's especially blurry old pictures, black and white, 70s, chrome, anything like that. The more, of course, it's just a digital image. Somebody might say, well, show me the picture.
Right.
You could print it out, but anyway, and you know how things are now. People believe all kinds of stuff. So, and I guess this UFO thing you mentioned had gone viral. So it's about it's going. I mean, it's going to get silly with political things and God knows what. But
Oh, I don't even I don't even want to think about the political ramifications. You know, it's going to be bad enough in the Bigfoot community, which in the grand scheme of things, yes, it's very small, you know, but man, the ramifications across the entire, uh, scope of human history could be far reaching. You mentioned a little bit earlier, and we were talking about this off camera. So let's put it here. BitSquatch, where could this go?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Think of the scenario that this could go.
Well, I think people are going to be able to create the images they want to see, and I'm sort of
Absolutely.
getting at that point, and I'm not really sure what that means. But like it's instant gratification. So if you train something to show you what you like or what you want to see, that gets entertainment, all kinds of things. So, and that's as an art. I have an art degree. My background is in art, so this is rewarding for me because you have to put the time in, but you're certainly not. I mean, I could sit down with Photoshop and try to draw some of this stuff, but I don't have the
Right.
patience for that, and I wouldn't get it nearly looking as good as what these things look like. But so it's very empowering. Like if you put the time in as a writer or someone with a tool, and you're driven, you can generate amazing images of just about anything you want. So I think it's going to open the door up to with what's called the creator community. On one hand, it democratizes that. There's very low barriers to entry here. That's the good news and the bad news.
Exactly. And I wish there was like everyone could just agree, be a good enough person to say, yes, I made these using DALL-E, and don't be a liar, like
right.
There's got to be some accountability. And the thing is there's not going to be, and how can is there any way right now that we can know 100% that a photo is a real, like if it's real or if it's AI generated? Is there anything, that we can look
most
at?
of these tools have a look, and if you just typed in, for instance, Sasquatch under a tree or Bigfoot under a tree and the different platforms, you'll get a real simple rendering, and you kind of get an idea of, okay, that's sort of its default look. And then it takes a lot of work to sort of craft that into something more compelling. But just about every image I've created, you look at it, it's obviously fake. There's maybe one or two where it's like, whoa, like
there's a few where I'm like, it's close, man. Give it a year. It's gonna be there.
Yeah, like one series I've done, and I'm a fan of Wes and Sasquatch Chronicles,
Sure.
but
Yep.
I did the famous Claire episode where the British woman saw a number of Sasquatch on the California coast, and that was always a really compelling story. And I thought, well, let me try to do something with this. And there's something about the atmosphere, the beach, the sun, the sun in the horizon, and then the wetness of the figures that actually makes it look more real than some of the other things I've done. And so I've done a lot of those because I like what it spits out. And then a couple, including there's one in the water that it's a close up of his face, and it's just like, whoa.
That's the exact one I'm thinking of. Yeah, it's so wild, man. It is so intense. Is there anything like hidden or anything in the metadata of the?
I've looked. I don't believe there is. It doesn't, but it's certainly not going to show you camera metadata where a real image would. And I don't know enough about the meta hacking. If you can hack metadata or not, I don't know. Like, could you put photography type metadata, Canon camera in this? I don't know if that's possible. Someone else.
That's even I didn't even think of that. You could. That could get crazy.
I don't. Maybe that's not. I'm not sure if it's editable or not. I know you can remove metadata, but I don't know if you can add it.
If listeners have any thoughts about that, feel free. You can email that in the Bigfoot Society at gmail.com. Do you think we'll get to the point where someone will be able to recreate the Patterson Gimlin footage using
Yeah,
AI?
or something close. And
Something
it may
close
even
to
be a
it?
tool to study it. If you look at what
Yeah.
who's the guy who did all the analysis of the film?
Oh, yeah. The proof. It was a History Channel show, right?
No, Bill Munns.
Oh yeah, Bill Munns.
He's
Yep.
really dissected it, and people like that, you could possibly use it as a visualization tool to maybe better
True.
understand. Turn the camera around, and I've seen some visualizations like that where they're doing like a 3D simulation to kind of figure out where was he standing, where was the figure, what was in the background. So things like that, you may be able to use it to kind of further bring it to life, or certainly kind of recreate it in either a simplistic way or possibly very realistic. It's hard to say. Right now, the tool doesn't understand Patty. I've tried to say, hey, draw
No,
Patty
it
or
doesn't.
Patterson.
I've tried that too.
It
Yeah.
doesn't. It
Yeah.
doesn't know what that is.
Um,
That's an interesting thing. Most things are in there. If you name figures or animals or different, understands. Every now and then you hit a brick wall where it's like, okay, it doesn't. You have to describe it another way.
I bet though, in the future, it will.
Yeah, I believe you
I
can
don't know.
train it. I saw one of these special effects guys, YouTubers, who I'm not sure which platform they were using, but he got it to understand his face and his likeness, and
Oh
then he was able
wow.
to make things, featuring himself doing things. So right now the only thing you could do, I believe, is like people who are famous on the internet, basically, where there's multiple pictures of them published.
Right. Exactly. Do you think it's important for people listening to this to get to be able to be familiarized with how to use these programs, know how to do it themselves? Is there any value in that, do you think?
Yeah, and there's, as you mentioned earlier, there's like a cottage industry of people helping you with what's called
True.
prompt crafting, and even
True.
certain tools, they encourage you to share. When you share your image, you're supposed to share your prompt. And so basically you can look at someone else's image and go, oh, how did they do that? Then you actually can copy their copy, and certain tools will either recreate it exactly or give you something close, and then you can kind of iterate from there.
Interesting. Have you ever played around? I saw this the other day on a platform where they were taking album art and they were expanding on it. Have you seen that?
No, but
Dude,
I
it
do
was
know like
wild.
album covers is sort of a little
Yes.
genre in the AI community of making either satirical or I was trying to do like a 70s van with like a Frank Frazetta Bigfoot painting on the
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I couldn't make it work, but I was like, that's one of the things I was trying to do. And he did like the Molly Hatchet cover, with the Viking guy back
Nice.
in the day.
I've been able to get it to reproduce the Frank Frazetta Mothman pretty close, which is like, that's so niche, but it was on it, dude. It was all about it. I was like,
Oh,
what
wow.
is going on? This is crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. I tell my kids this, like, growing up in the 70s, like somebody like Frazetta, or there were a couple of like concept artists. There was a guy who did all the Star Wars stuff. That's all you could see in the world of fantasy or science fiction or whatever. There were just these paintings or drawings. There was no special effects. There was nothing. And some of these guys. And I think that's the industry this is going to impact the most. The whole idea of a concept artist, a guy who does a visualization for a movie scene or book cover. And I believe some of these concept artists are moving to use the platform. I read somewhere certain artists are using it to generate backgrounds because they don't feel like drawing a background. So they'll just say, whatever, California mountains at sunset, and boom, you'll get something very quickly. You can drop in your piece. And a colleague of mine was using the tool. I showed him the tool, and he was using it to do some visualizations, some storyboards for a music video he was working on. So, it's really, and people have produced comic books, I think, already using Midjourney and
oh wow,
Stable Diffusion. Yes, it's a little this is the thing about the tool is you tell it what you want and you don't really get exactly what you want. That's sort of the
Not yet.
It's frustrating, and the wonderful thing about you get something very interesting and great. It's just not literally exactly what you're sort of picturing in your mind's eye, and that's what's so fun about it. It's just a little bit infuriating about it, but you sort of have to. You get more than you lose there. So like I'm constantly surprised. We're like, wow, I would have never thought of that. Like whatever it just came up with. And I've seen talk in the creative community. That's what people are saying. It's like, hey, from a compositional standpoint, from a layout, from a framing, photographers, like this thing's very inventive, and I can use it. I can use it for ideas, for storyboards, to then go out and create a real piece of artwork or photograph or what have you.
Have you thought of, we don't want the whole interview to be like, hey, watch out for this. Have you thought of like there's got to be some like good positive uses of things of using something like AI?
Oh yeah. No,
like what are the positive things that can come out of this?
Anyone can create visually interesting graphics and artwork. It's amazing. It's very empowering. And if you can type a sentence, you can get art back. And like everybody, you can even just use 3 words. And occasionally it's usually the shorter the prompt, the much more random it is, but you'll be surprised. Everybody's going to have a piece of art that they've created on these tools that they like, that they could blow up and hang on their wall or whatever. It's within 10 minutes of using it, you can get something that you like.
That is really cool. Yeah. That's cool. So it's empowerment. I like that. What in your opinion is the easiest one to use? If after this interview, people are like, yeah, I want to take, check it out and take a swing at it. What's
this
one
is a
that
good
they
question,
could,
and there's so many.
I know.
For BitSquatch, I've been primarily using Midjourney, and you have to get an account on Discord, and then you have to get a Midjourney, but you can get a free account. You have to jump through a few hoops. And then on things like Stable Diffusion, you can install them on your own machine, or there's front ends to get to them through websites and things, and those all vary in terms of how much you can do for free, and at some point you have to pay. And the good thing about these tools that are sort of managed is they do have moderation built in, so they're looking out for political stuff and just people up to no good.
That's good.
But you can, apparently, I have never done this, you can install certain tools, I believe, like Stable Diffusion. If you have an NVIDIA card or a PC, you can run it locally. You do need some technical knowledge to do that. Wow. I haven't even tried. But most of these are basically browser based. That's what I was talking about. Like you're texting a robot. You're literally putting a text prompt in a box on a web browser and hitting submit. So, and then a minute later, you get an image. So Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, and DALL-E. I haven't actually used DALL-E. And I Googled this morning. There's already several dozen tools. So who knows? There's all kinds of stuff out there.
When you say tools, is that something completely different from like DALL-E?
No, meaning several dozen AI to art, text to art, image generators. Yeah. And I think there's going to be more. Wow. And I would imagine, people are going to commercialize it, and they're already charging access for some of them. But like,
oh sure,
the easier they are to use, those might be software service or something you buy, like from Adobe or something.
Wouldn't that be wild if in the future it's like part of Adobe's Creative Cloud is like AI photo generation? I've seen it in other places already. I've seen it. I'm not going to mention names because I can't remember them, but I have seen it where in one of them where it was like part of your AI, article generation. Now you can generate photos. So it's definitely it's proliferating throughout the entire, everything. Do you think it could get to the point where people could have like create Bigfoot eyewitness reports through AI generation? I guess this is more about
this is a good twist, because apparently there are tools, I've never used them, that generate text, generate stories. I read something just the other day where I'm not sure who has this tool, but it can look at someone telling a story for only like 10 seconds, and then it'll fill in the rest of the story.
Oh my goodness.
So again, it's probably AI is probably sucked in all text on the internet, so that it understands here's what story structure is, here's common themes, here's. So if you said, "Tell me a nursery rhyme" or whatever, it could probably write something. And I don't know if you saw this thing. Google was working on that. What do they call it? There was like a text-based personality that you interacted with, and they're trying to really simulate. And one of the Google engineers claims this thing's alive. It has consciousness.
That got weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's a term for that. I can't remember what it's called, when all of a sudden we've crossed the threshold. But they're just saying, no, it's actually just really good at talking to you, and you've been duped. But he's insisting it's more than that.
Another fun thing I stumbled upon is there's a program out there, I think it's Descript, where pretty much it's a transcription program based off AI. But the cool thing about it, or horrifying, is you can feed it a few hours of your own voice. It has to be your own voice talking. And then the AI learns your voice. So then you can type out words, and an AI version of your own voice will say it. You can think about the ramifications for that if they're historical or famous figures that have multiple hours of audio available on the internet. I mean, it's some crazy stuff. But
even for this interview, I just didn't have time to pull it together. But my son informed me there's vloggers, virtual video loggers, who use virtual avatars as their visual presence, and they're talking in real time, and the avatar is moving and eye tracking and animated. And I was going to try to set up some sort of BitSquatchy version of that. I just didn't have time and didn't understand the technology to do it. Maybe we can do that in a future episode. I mean, I am actually really interested in technology as it's used in the study of Bigfoot, and I believe you've had one of these guys on. And, there's all these people doing the mapping stuff with GIS.
Yeah, I've had a few of those guys in. Yeah. Yep.
I think an opportunity would be, and something like this used to exist. So much is happening with these oral histories, the Sasquatch Chronicle type stories, and none of this is written down. It's just you hear a recording of someone describing, a sighting, an encounter, and they describe all kinds of behaviors and the conditions. If we could index these things and tag them based on these parameters, where was it? What did it look like? What did it do? What behaviors did you observe? Just using simple tagging, you can then pull up, let me read about all episodes involving a wood knock or whatever. I'm making that up. Or one that comes to mind is a hunter was looking through a rifle scope, and he saw the creature make the wood knock type noise with its mouth. And he clicked his tongue, or he used his teeth or something. This is what he thought he saw happening. So, have other people seen this? If you tagged all these sightings and these descriptions, we could pull up very quickly, what's happening. In the old days, in the Krantz or whatever, these sightings were all in books. Well, now they're all just audio on either YouTube or in podcasts. So it's just tremendous. I spend time listening to these when I'm working or driving. I mean, they're fascinating, but a lot of great information is getting put on the table. It's just hard to pull it all together. And if somebody just sat down, of course, maybe to transcribe this, you could use software to do it. Then index, okay, what are they talking about? What are the parameters that I can key off of? Then you could create some sort of relational database of, sighting conditions, behaviors, appearances, etc.
That would be a tremendous undertaking, but I think it'd be very, very beneficial for the community. I mean, if someone wants to run with that, dude,
somebody please do it.
That would be amazing. I don't know how many years it's going to take. And the thing is, it's there's so much content being generated daily just in the Bigfoot community alone. It's intense. It is intense to keep up with, dude.
No, it is.
I don't know, but
and just filtering it and separating the wheat from the chaff is
exactly.
And that's the thing that's really changed. 20 years ago, there was Bigfoot forums, and there was a few little things here and there, and there was a lot of negativity, a lot of trolling. People were slammed. There was all kinds of showboating and just idiocy. And it wasn't a very conducive environment to actually learn anything or share any kind of information. Now, thanks to people like yourself
Thank
and
you.
Wes and all the many
Yep.
people out there, they're letting people, you know, and then you have experts on who actually talk about things they're doing, things they've observed in the field.
Exactly.
You can really put. I still want people to take this for granted. This has really just happened, I think, in the last couple of years, and it's a little bit overwhelming. But we're in so much of a better place today than just 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, you know, you are one of the people that see that, because that is one of the big goals that I have through this, is to help create a better community where people can work together and, you know, pretty much work towards, you know, figuring out what this creature or this animal or what is going on, you know, and pretty much go across lines that have been drawn in the past. BitSquatch, is there what places do you recommend? What resources do you recommend if people want to learn more about how to use this this AI software? Or is it a thing where it's so new you have to figure it out as you go along?
Well, get your platform of choice, and then you just Google it, and there's guides.
Easy as
Sometimes
that.
the
Yep.
tools have forums and message boards built in. I know Midjourney does. There's threads where people are discussing prompting and how to do certain kinds of things, portraits or environments. I did read the other day, like architects are using it.
Oh wow.
Someone told me fashion designers are now using it to create patterns and fabrics. There's a lot of actual commercial application. So people, and there's a number of YouTube. There's all kinds of YouTube videos on it. But if you read these forums or these websites, you can actually get the text, the prompts. You can copy and paste, and literally start with someone else's prompt and then sort of refine.
Exactly. This has been a really enlightening discussion of BitSquatch. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we start to head out, is there any other things that you wish we would have covered that's important to know, or you think this is a good introduction?
No, it's a good introduction. I want to talk about Bigfoot more.
All right, let's do it. What do you think Bigfoot is?
Oh boy. I definitely think it's flesh and blood, some kind of primate, hominoid. It's an animal that eats, sleeps, poops. It's in the woods doing something. How it's evaded all of us for so long is sort of the ultimate mystery. I was watching one of these cable shows, and they had a tracker, and he was like in South America, and he was tracking some kind of big cat. And he was able to find it, but he had this great quote. He said, if this animal was just a little bit smarter, let's say as smart as a chimp, I would never be able to find it, like ever. And that really stuck with me. Like, wait a second, what if this thing is as smart as we think it is, and obviously is a master of its environment? Well, clearly it's great at, stealth, hide and seek, moving quietly, whatever. That would explain how is it doing this? Like, it doesn't need caves. It doesn't need to teleport. It doesn't need to go underground. It doesn't need to do all the things people sort of project onto it. It's just really good at mastering its environment and invading us. It hears us coming a mile away or whatever. That's, but also the conundrum. Like, the more you dig into this, and there's been guys like Project Go and See, and you read the sightings, you realize how widespread this damn thing is. It's like it's in a lot of places where it only has the most minimal amount of wood cover, deer population, and fairly close to humans in many cases, which makes the fact that it's still out of touch, out of reach, even more like infuriating. Like, how can this possibly be happening? Like,
right.
They're kind of at odds with each other. But that's what's really kind of intrigued me. Just recently, more sightings are coming out from very credible people of, particularly in the South. There's just a lot of activity in just semi-rural areas. That it's not like you don't have to go up to the, deep in the Pacific Northwest or something. It just needs some cover, some water, and some game. And I believe I read some stats somewhere that like there's more deer today than there was 100 years ago. There's like 20 times more deer because people are feeding them, you know, with the plots and everything. So you sort of create, at the same time, it's this massive habitat destruction. It still might be a, you know, target rich environment in terms of wild hogs, deer. There's just so much going on out there for these things to feed off of potentially. And I'm no naturalist. This is strictly my own conjecture here.
Right. Do you have you ever thought about going out yourself to try to look at it, or are you pretty comfortable with?
I did go. I have a funny story.
Okay.
Right, it was 2005 in July, and I had my young son with me. I was really into it. I had been reading, you know, Lauren Coleman, and he has this great book, Apes, the True Story of Apes in America. And I was just looking at BRFO and looking at all the sighting reports. And we took a vacation to South Carolina on the coast. So, and I said, look, one day I'm going to take my son. We're going to go, you know, look for Bigfoot, quote unquote. So I did the research. I found a sighting, and it was, you know, 45 minutes north of where we were staying. So I went to it was like Francis Marion National Forest. And I'm driving. We had a minivan, you know, so I got my son. We were in camo. It was partly just put on, hey, let's do this, have some fun. So we, you know, I had done the research, like, okay, this is potentially, and we went during the daytime, but we drove. He's in the backseat watching Scooby-Doo the whole time. We finally get there. We go through a small town. We're out in the woods. We're in this marshy area. And I'm like, okay, this looks pretty squatchy, so to speak. So we finally get to the end of this dirt road. And there's a trail. This is apparently where the sighting had happened that was in the BRFO report. There was a trail going through this kind of marshy, woody area. And when we pulled up to it and I looked down this trail, it looked like a tunnel going through this dark, congested, kind of creepy looking thing. So I was like, okay, we're here. And he was like, no way. He would not get out of the car. He was crying. He's screaming. I was like, okay.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like so frustrated, like, okay, I spent all this time. Here's my big outing. So I said, I tell you what, I talked to my son. I said, can I just get out of the car and like walk around? You'll be able to see me. And he's like, okay. So I get out of the car. This is the end of a cul-de-sac, a dirt road, and it had just been raining for the last couple of days. And I'm looking around. I'm looking down there. I mean, I'm just trying to make something out of nothing. And I look on the ground, and God damn it, there's looks like this big ass footprint.
No way.
It didn't have toes, but it had that classic shape.
Yeah.
And it was big. So I had my camera. I took the picture. I took my shoe off. I put it next to it. And I was like, well, thank God I got out. And so then I'm still looking at it. Well, here comes this other car. The guy drives right over it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, perfect, bud.
I had taken a picture, so I sent it in to the BRFO. They called me back. I said, look,
oh, cool.
There was no toes or anything, but it's like this is in an area where there was a sighting. This sort of looks like one. It was certainly big enough, but I felt gratified, like, okay, I'm 1 for 1. You know, and this was July 2005. Katrina hit 2 months later, and that put an end to my Bigfooting for quite a long time. So I had to get on to other things.
That's awesome.
The other time I went, you know, I used to follow these guys, the GCBRO, the Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research. And,
Yep.
Bobby,
I've heard those guys,
Bobby Hamilton, really great guy, and Jim Lansdale. They ended up doing his TV show or whatever. But they would have these picnics. And my friend invited me, let's go up there. And this is up by Shreveport, Louisiana. So we drove and we met all the people that hung out on this forum were there. It was kind of interesting. You know, I met Lansdale and stuff. But my friend, everybody was just camping out in this big open field. He's like, no, we want to go camp where the action is. So Jim's like, oh, I can tell you exactly where that is. You got to go over here. And there's a nest site nearby. This is what he said there was happening. So
nice.
We go at the end of this road and we're camping. And I'm like, you know, of course, I'm not the world's greatest camper. So of course, nothing happens. But in the middle of the night, you know, nature calls. I have to go to the bathroom. So like I'm leaning right against these woods where supposedly they're right there, you know, so your mind is just going crazy, you know. And of course, again, nothing happened, but it was like, you know, our little fun outing. I think what's his name was there, the Texas cryptozoologist Ken Gerhardt was there.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But anyway, those are our two little. I haven't really done much that. Mostly, as you mentioned, just keeping up with this stuff, you know, even as a hobby. is almost a, I don't want to say it's a full-time job, but it's just something.
It's pretty intense, dude.
Yeah. And I think, you know, armchair researchers get slagged, and I don't consider myself one of those, but the point is you can keep up with what's going on. There's so much good information out there. You can, you know, develop at least some kind of working body of knowledge that has, you know, practical impacts for this, you know, pursuit of this hobby or whatever you want to call it.
Do you have any other favorite resources that have been helpful over the last few years? I know you mentioned the Lauren Coleman book, but anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I was really interested at first in the classics, and Bobby Short had that. I believe she's passed away, but she had a website called Bigfoot Encounters, and it's still there. And that's got all the classics in the Ape Canyon and all that. That was a lot of fun. And then nowadays it's channels like yourself, all the interviews, the Sasquatch Chronicles, some of these YouTubers.
Yeah.
That's where kind of all the action is, and you sort of have to, you know, see what kind of suits your fancy. Some of it's better than others, but you know, I appreciate the time these people put in, even yourself. You know, no one's getting paid doing this.
No,
it's a passion project.
It really is. Yeah, it is. Yep. Totally right.
And it's a positive vibe of just sharing information. And I think that's really, again, needs to be commended, because at one point that really wasn't happening. But you know, and it's, I mentioned Southern Bigfooters. You know, one guy I really loved, and he just recently passed away, Kerry Arnold.
Oh yeah,
you know, from Mississippi.
What a good dude. Yep.
That story was really compelling. It kind of got me back into the subject, because there was so much bitterness and negativity back in the day. It was easy to get burnt out in the hoaxing and the, you know, the refrigerator and all the stuff that happened. Right. It was just like, I can't deal with this. But then you see somebody like that tell that story, and it's like, whoa, you know, this is Mike Woolley. You know, these people are very powerful speakers. They're obviously very genuine. Their life's been changed by this. This isn't like a joke. And it just kind of pulls you in even further.
So good. Yeah, BitSquatch, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for also just chatting about Bigfoot in general. I think in the future, the way that this AI stuff is progressing, I could see us easily chatting, you know, maybe a year down the road, or having some sort of follow-up episode if you'd be up for that. But
sure.
Yeah, this has been extremely enlightening, but thanks for coming on and helping tell.
But I do have one question.
What's going on? Yeah.
One of the first, you messaged me right away, and you said, you had this great quote. You said, "Who is this?" And you had like an exclamation point.
I was like, "Who is this guy?" I was like, "This better not just be like the Moth Boys hanging out, right?" Like
who did you think it was?
I had no idea. I had no idea.
I didn't know how to read that. I was flattered by the question, but I was like, you know,
yeah.
I just thought it was funny.
But it was just like, you know, when I first saw your account, I was like, this is such an interesting combination of a, you know, rapidly accelerating science plus cryptozoology, and I got to get what the story on this is. So I'm glad that you were cool with coming on, and yeah, it has been a fun chat. BitSquatch, do you mind taking a few minutes reminding people how they can keep up to date with what you're all doing?
Yeah, I just have 2 channels right now. I have an Instagram channel called BitSquatch. So if you search Instagram, you'll find that. And I had an older account that's been retired, and it'll say, "Hey, we moved." If you find the wrong one,
okay, it'll
link to the new one. And then I have a Twitter, same thing with BitSquatch, and I think you'll post the links. But
exactly, yeah. Oh yeah,
Instagram is the main thing. I get on Twitter and just kind of goof around, but Instagram is where I'm posting the images as they're the ones that are kind of worthy to be shown. For every image posted, I have dozens, sometimes hundreds.
I'm sure. Yeah,
you have to iterate to kind of get where something worth showing.
So definitely go over, follow BitSquatch on Instagram, Twitter. But I mean, you're not going to find images like this anywhere else. So get in on BitSquatch. It's a good time. It's enlightening. But thank you so much for coming on again, sir.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
views and opinions expressed are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Bigfoot Society. Any content provided by our guests are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone. Thank you.